Soul Music by Terry Pratchett, book review. So this is yet another book in the Discworld series by Terry Pratchett. I've reviewed several of those books on this channel so far. And yeah, what can I say? I'm a fan. I really like this series. If you're not familiar, it's a humorous series. It's set in a type of medieval fantasy realm, although it's kind of a satire on fantasy. Each book has a different theme. Sometimes the author Terry Pratchett likes to tackle more modern themes, in which case the books can be a little bit anachronistic because the setting is supposed to be this medieval fantasy world, you know, wizards and warlocks and swords and sorcery and all that kind of stuff. But in those cases, when the Terry Pratchett is trying to tackle a more modern theme, he usually uses magic to explain away any anachronisms or discrepancies. If you remember the Flintstones, it's a bit like that old Flintstones gag of having the dinosaurs act in place of modern technology. Meaning, it is a bit corny, but at the same time, it's just all part of the fun with a series like this. So, in this case, the theme of this book is rock and roll music, which enters into the Discworld through magic, of course, and it creates a sensation and then a conservative counter-reaction, which is all very similar to the birth of rock and roll in our universe in the 1950s and 60s. Now, rock and roll music doesn't belong in the Discworld. Instead, it's seeping in from another dimension, which is heavily hinted that it's ours. As a result, everything that resembles rock music and popular culture from our universe gets distorted a little bit in the Discworld universe. And in other words, they're getting influences from our universe, but it's getting distorted through whatever barrier it's seeping through. This gives way to a lot of bad puns, which is the running joke throughout this book. So instead of rock music, it's called music with rocks in. Instead of The Who, there is a group called The Whom. Instead of the Grateful Dead, there's a reference to the Grateful Death, etc. This is all the way through the book. Now, this is just my personal opinion, but I think Pratchett's usual humor is lagging a bit in this book. It's not quite up to his usual standards. There's a lot of reliance on bad puns, and there's a lot of real groaners in this book. This is all through the book, but I'll just give two by way of example. Quoting, "We need to play somewhere, like in a club." "I've got a club. It's got a nail in it," said the troll. "No, I mean like a nightclub. It's still got a nail in it at night." One more. "Don't worry, I'll sort it out. Sorting out about money is my middle name." That must be a long middle name. Yeah, another real groaner there. And so it goes. I guess when you write as many books as Terry Pratchett does, they can't all be on top form. When Terry Pratchett is on, he is really on. His funny books are really funny. This one, it didn't do it for me quite as much. But there were kind of a few cute moments when at least the book had the grace to acknowledge that it was making a bad pun. For example, here's another quote from the book. The hero of the book, Imp, is a young musician who's just arrived in the city. And he's playing his instrument at a street corner when two policemen walk by. Quoting from the book. "That's a harp he's playing, Nobby," said one of them after watching Imp for a while. "Liar." "No, it's the honest truth, The fat guard frowned and looked down. "You've just been waiting all your life to say that, ain't you, Nobby?" he said. So that one got a smile out of me. I mean, you know, it was a bad pun, but then the whole reaction to it. Corny jokes aside, One of the great things about any Terry Pratchett book is always the plotting. In all of his books, he usually has several plot lines going, and they all come together seamlessly at the end. Considering how many books he has written, it's impressive that he always manages to pull this off, but he always manages to pull this off. And this one as well. There's several different storylines going on here. There's the story of the band with Roxanne, which is the band that starts the whole phenomenon and in the process becomes possessed by the music. But there's also the story of their talentless imitators, which is meant to be a spoof on punk music. And there's the Wizards University, where the aging faculty start to act like rebellious teenagers, and the Arch-Chancellor is worried about the fabric of reality imploding again. And then there's the story of Death himself, who's always a character in the Discworld series. Death gets depressed with his job and goes on a quest to try and forget. And then there's Death's granddaughter Susan, who is in a boarding school, and she's clueless of her real ancestry. She doesn't know that she's the granddaughter of Death, until a skeleton rat and a talking raven show up at her bedside. Lots of different plot threads being juggled, but they all come together perfectly at the end. Because I've been reading these books out of order, I've noticed that some of the characters who are introduced in this book reappear as major characters in some of the other books, particularly Susan, who is also a major character in A Thief of Time. This is the book that she's introduced in, but I've been reading these books out of order. If you go over to Wikipedia, or when I went over to Wikipedia, I discovered that this book was also an animated TV show miniseries that was on British television. And then I went over to YouTube to see if there was any copies online, and sure enough there were, and the last time I checked they're still up. So if you search YouTube for Soul Music Terry Pratchett, you can find the miniseries that was on British TV. It's animated. I wasn't going to watch the whole thing, but then I got bored and I watched the whole thing. And it's not bad. Like, it filled up the time nicely. It was a pleasant waste of time. It's not great either, though. It shows how difficult it is to translate Terry Pratchett's dry humor from the book onto a different medium. I think Douglas Adams' stuff has had the same problem, right? That Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy movie, even though it was a lot of the exact same gags as in the book, the ironic dry humor just works much better on the printed page. So, same apparently with Terry Pratchett. The Soul Music, it's just, I mean, it's a bit of a groaner anyways, but to the extent that there is humor, I think it works better on the printed page. It didn't seem to work too well for me as an animated TV show. Plus, for the life of me, I don't know why they made this one into an animated TV show. I mean, for my money, this is one of Terry Pratchett's less good books. So why didn't they make one of his better books into an animated TV show? I don't know. But it's on YouTube if you want to check it out. So all in all, I'd recommend this book. It's not the best Discworld book, but all Discworld books are good Discworld books. So yeah, worth checking it out.